6 spine-chilling nighttime horrors revealed, unexplained, sinister stories that haunt the darkness. Sarah sat on the bus, the hum of the engine dulling her senses. Her eyes drooped, fatigue clawing at her limbs after another night shift as a nurse. But something felt off. A flicker of movement caught her attention. Across the dimly lit bus stop, a man stood just outside the flickering light, his eyes locked onto her. They pierced through the night, sending a chill crawling up her spine. For a moment, she felt like prey. Dread wrapped around her throat, tightening with every second. As the bus jolted to a stop, her heart raced. Was he following her? She shook her head, pushing the thought away. Surely, she was just tired. Yet, dread lingered like a ghost weaving through her mind. The suburban streets of Philadelphia that cradled her and her children now felt like a labyrinth of lurking shadows. She clutched her bag tighter, every crack of the bus door echoing ominously. Arriving home felt surreal. The warm lights of her house flickered, casting dancing shadows across the front yard. The door, it was slightly ajar. Panic surged through her as she threw open the door and stepped inside. A waft of air brushed past her, carrying an unsettling chill. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number lighting the screen. "I see you, Sarah. Did you think you could hide from the truth?" The message sent ice skittering down her spine. Her mind raced with memories of the neighborhood-friendly smiles, children laughing in the streets. Behind that veneer of normalcy lay whispers of Mr. Larson, the principal whose cheery demeanor hid sinister rumors of long-ago disappearances. The fabric of her once trustworthy world began to unravel, like threads pulled taut now snapping one by one. Suddenly a rustle outside shattered her thoughts. Peering through the curtain, she gasped. The man from the bus stood by the garden trees, just outside her yard, illuminated by the waning light. Did he realize how exposed she was, alone with her children inside? Rational thoughts crumbled into a pile of fear. He was watching, waiting. What did he want? Each heartbeat pounded in her ears, drowning out everything else. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the dread twisted tighter, every creak of the house echoed eerily. She glanced back at her children, blissfully unaware, deep in slumber. She felt a surge of protective instinct. This man posed a threat, or maybe the danger was closer than she thought. Mr. Larson, too, perhaps. The very foundations of her community, once sturdy, felt like quicksand beneath her feet. A glimmer of hope shone as she thought of her neighbors, people she believed she could trust. But with trust now eroding, who could she turn to when darkness swirled around her? The man took a step closer, shadow stretching across her yard. What did he know? What did he want? The breath caught in her throat, a visceral panic seizing her. The safe haven became a haunted shell of secrets and terror. As the man's silhouette shifted, Sarah froze. In that moment, overwhelmed by fear and the suffocating weight of her decisions, she understood one thing clearly: the true nightmare was only just beginning. What would she do next? The man held the key, and the night was far from over. Sarah's mind raced, darting between instinct and fear. The man outside moved again, his head tilting slightly as if studying a curious specimen. Her heart thudded in her chest as she fought the urge to scream. She forced herself back from the window, breathing shallowly. What now? Call the police? She couldn't leave her children alone. What if he got inside? Or worse, what if she confronted him? The last flicker of hope faded as she recalled the unknown message. The truth echoed in her mind like a hammer striking steel. What truth? What had she stumbled into in this unassuming town? Taking a shaky breath, Sarah tiptoed toward the door to lock it quietly. She cursed under her breath, fumbling with the latch. Every second felt like an eternity. Behind her, the sound of her children turning in their sleep filled the silence, blissfully unaware of the horror creeping closer. Outside, the man's shadow lurked, still and ominous. She reached for her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed 911. Each ring felt like a countdown, anxiety curling her gut. "Please, answer." At the third ring, the operator picked up, her voice soothing but distant. 911, what's your emergency? Help. There's a man outside my house. He's been watching me, and I don't know what he wants. My kids are in here too. Stay inside with your children. Officers are on the way. Can you see what he looks like? Her breath caught in her throat as she glanced through the curtains again. The man was closer now, standing under the streetlight, his face illuminated for a brief moment. His smile was wide, unnatural, stretching far beyond the realm of human comfort. It felt wrong. The light revealed something. His eyes glinted, but they didn't hold any warmth, rather, they burned with a predatory hunger. "Ma'am? Are you there?" The operator asked. A muffled thud caused her to jump, cutting off her reply. Flicking her gaze back to the door, she felt cold fear seep into her marrow. The front lock rattled as if someone was trying to push it open. "Stay on the line," she whispered urgently. Sarah took a step back, heart racing as panic set in. Did he know her? Her mind screamed a warning. She needed a weapon. Grabbing a kitchen knife from the drawer, she gripped it tightly, feeling the cold steel against her skin. It was a small reassurance, but in this situation, even a little was better than nothing. Then came a knock, firm, deliberate. "Sarah," a husky voice called out, smooth and silky. It was a voice she recognized. A voice that sent shivers down her spine. "You know me. Let's talk." It was Mr. Larson. The principal. But why was he here? Why was he with that man? Panic clawed at her throat as she recalled how he always seemed too interested in the kids. The rumor whispered about missing children haunted her thoughts like a dark cloud, suffocating her sanity. "Sarah, I know about the things you've been looking into," he continued, that unsettling smile still plastered across his face. "I didn't want to scare you. I just wanted to help." Help? The word left a bitter taste in her mouth, dread tightening around her heart. All that dread, all those whispers, they were real. But could she trust the man who had made a mockery of safety, of community? "Stay with me, please," she whispered to her kids, knowing she had to protect them, but not knowing what was waiting for her outside. In that moment of silence filled only by the sound of her children's soft breaths and the wild thumping of her heart, a choice loomed ahead of her. Face her fears, or hide away in her shattered sanctuary. The door creaked ominously, a shadow shifted again. What was the truth, and who would she sacrifice to uncover it? As Sarah stood frozen, the night grew heavy with impending doom. Little did she know, the door would not close so easily on the horrors lurking beyond. The air thickened with tension, and every creak of the house felt like a countdown to chaos. Sarah gripped the handle of the knife so tightly her knuckles turned white. Mr. Larson's voice echoed eerily in her mind. "Let's talk." Talk? What was there to discuss that wouldn't lead to disaster? The knock came again, harder this time, rattling her heart. "Sarah, please. Open the door. I have to explain. You're in danger." There was a tremor in his voice now, perhaps a hint of urgency. But who was the real danger, him, or the shadow lingering behind him? Time slipped away. She glanced back at her children, their tiny faces serene, lost in dreams. If only they could stay there. But reality crept in like fog, drowning her in dread. "Sarah." The door groaned, like it sensed the danger heating up within. She could hear shuffling outside. Had the man behind Larson joined the fray? Was he reaching for the door handle? Stay still, she whispered, inching toward the window. She peeked through the curtain again. The man stood at the edge of the light, gaze fixed on the door. His smile was wider, teeth glinting in the streetlight. It was a predator-esque grin, one meant to instill fear, to garner compliance. "Why are you doing this?" she breathed, her voice straining with fear. "Because you need to know, Sarah. You don't understand what lies in wait for you." The principal's voice teased at the edge of sanity, low and menacing. "You've been asking questions. You're poking a hornet's nest. Shut up," she hissed, gripping the knife like a lifeline. Suddenly, the lights in the living room flickered, a power outage loomed. In a town with such modest electricity usage, this felt deliberate. It pulled her from her fearful trance. She needed to act. "Look," Mr. Larson continued, his tone shifting, desperate. "The nightmares, they're real. I can help you fight them, but you have to trust me." Trust? In a world where shadows danced, lurking with malevolent intention? "No. Get away from my house," she yelled, but adrenaline surged, clouding her brain. How had she let him get so close? The knocking turned to a pounding. The door threatened to give way, her flimsy barricade trembling. She turned back to her children, their soft breaths a reminder of her purpose. Every second felt like a countdown, a prelude to an inevitable storm. Then something snapped. The door's lock splintered under the pressure of Mr. Larson's insistence. The other man moved, positioning himself, lurking in the shadows just beyond the porch light, a restless predator drawn by the scent of fear. A faint whispering echoed in Sarah's mind. "Let us stay quiet, don't provoke them," urging her to stay still. But the terror pulsed in her veins. This was her home. She wouldn't let them take it. "Mom, what's happening?" A sleepy voice pierced the heaviness, and a tiny hand reached out from the darkness. "Stay in bed. Please." Panic gripped her throat, slicing through her courage. She turned just in time to see the door start to open, splintering wood cascading like dry leaves. In a flash, she lunged for the door, knife clutched tight, but fear strung her limbs. Who would she face? The man outside? Or the horrible truth lurking within this twisted game? Bright headlights suddenly illuminated the window. Relief washed over her like rain on drought. "Police? Get away from my children!" she screamed, pointing the blade towards the open door, but where there was light, there was darkness and unsettling interplay. A blur of shadows rushed forward, leaving her screaming against the night. "Sarah, you're too late." Mr. Larson's voice twisted in the chaos, echoing with an unnerving finality. Suddenly, fear hit a crescendo. Would help ever arrive? As the shadows swept through the doorway, she stood at the crossroad of terror, facing the unknown. And then she felt the grip of something cold, something from the darkness seeping in behind her. The cold sensation tightened around Sarah's wrist like icy tendrils. She spun, heart racing, slicing through her panic. But the darkness melted into the familiar glow of her living room, now upside down, twisted. Shadows flickered at the corners, shapes that ought not to be there. "Mom!" The plea from her child brought her back. A soft whimper echoed in the musty air as she turned. They stood at the threshold of sleep, eyes wide, reflecting her horror. "Get under the blankets. Now!" she commanded, fear igniting her voice. Their startled faces shifted from confusion to submission. The knife remained raised, heart thumping against her ribs like a frantic drum. The door's frame crumbled under its own weight as the figures slipped inside, a mist of urgency and darkness colliding. She could feel their breath, warm and creeping over her skin. "Let us go, Sarah," Mr. Larson urged as his ominous figure emerged from the swirling shadows. "You don't realize how close they are." "Who?" Her instinct screamed to ask, but her voice strangled in her throat. The room felt too small, suffocating. She wanted to scream, but the sound trembled and died within her. The second man stepped into the dim light, a hulking mystery shrouded in layers of shadow, his eyes glinted with malevolence. He caught her gaze like a snake hypnotizing its prey. "We know what you found," he hissed, each word sharpened by a jagged edge. "What have you done?" The question slipped through her lips, laced with desperation. Did he mean the research? The secrets about the town? About her children? "They're coming for you. You've opened the door you shouldn't have," Larson echoed, stepping closer, his tone soft but warned with urgency. Sarah gripped the knife so tightly her fingers ached. "I don't believe you," she shouted defiantly, eyes darting to the shadows writhing at the edges of the room. "You have to," Larson pleaded. "They feed on fear. They're here now." As if on cue, darkness surged and twisted, spiraling toward her, fingers reaching, claws scraping against the walls, contorting into something more sinister than mere shadows. A whisper wrapped around them, barely audible, yet vibrating with an ominous rhythm. "Join us, surrender, no. Leave us alone." Her voice cut through the eerie chant, but each word turned colder as despair rushed back to fill the void. Her children cowered beneath the blankets, breaths coming in hurried bursts, eyes still glistening with confusion and terror. She had to protect them, yet doubt gnawed at her resolve. Maybe she had ignored the signs, the warning shredded rumors of a past long buried. Then, the man from the shadows chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that echoed in her mind. "You think you can fight fate, Sarah? You've awakened them. Now they want a piece of your soul." In that moment, her heart thundered, drowning out his words. A vision flashed before her, a memory of a town that once shined, now suspended in eternal twilight, where each villager carried the weight of unknown secrets. "Mom!" Her daughter's voice broke the spell. "What's happening? Make it stop." The shadows advanced, creeping closer. She had to act. Had to think fast. "Listen to me," she whispered to her children, determination sparking a fire in her chest. "You have to run. Find a way out." "I will," but the darkness swelled, the whispers intensified, drowning out her voice, wrapping around her heart like a vice. She could feel it tightening, the cold crawled deeper into her bones. As she readied herself to defend her family, the shadows shifted again, morphing into twisted, nightmarish shapes, both alluring and terrifying. She didn't know what to expect. This wasn't just fear, it was something deeper, something that tasted of loss, wrapped in desperation, and then she knew, with a chilling realization, that whatever they were, they wouldn't stop until they had what they came for. The wall trembled as a loud crash erupted outside, reverberating through the house. Had help arrived? Or was it more darkness? She glanced over at Larson, whose eyes mirrored her terror. "It's not over," he warned softly, fear curling around every word. As she steeled herself for the oncoming surge, a thought flashed painfully in her mind. Was there a way to fight, or was the only choice to succumb to Shadow's embrace? Among the cries outside, one relentless terror loomed in the air. What waited just beyond the door? And what would it take to survive this night? The shadows whispered, their chilling voices weaving through the air like a sinister symphony. Sarah's heart drummed louder, drowning out the urging whispers of the figures closing in on her. She would not let them take her children. This was her heart's resolute vow. "Mom?" Her daughter's voice trembled, a tiny spark of innocence amidst the looming darkness. With one final glance at her children, Sarah shifted her grip on the knife. The steel felt heavy but reassuring against her palm. She took a deep breath, fortifying herself. The shadows flickered, alarmed by her defiance, drawing back as if anticipating something. "Whatever you are, I want to let you take my family," she shouted into the abyss, feeling the surge of adrenaline eclipse her fear. Suddenly, the wall quaked again, but this time, it splintered open. A blinding light poured into the room, shattering the suffocating blackness. Sarah squinted against the brightness. Could this be salvation? A figure stepped through, silhouetted by the flare of light behind them. "Sarah!" The voice was deep and persistent, latching onto her in the chaos. As the figure moved closer, she could make out the familiar features of Detective Barnes, the town's new investigator. "They need you," he exclaimed, urgency threaded through every word. Before she could respond, Larson lunged forward, blocking Barnes with his mass. "You shouldn't have come here," he growled, teeth bared, eyes glinting dangerously. "Back off. I'm not giving up on her or her kids." Barnes stepped forward, determination setting his jaw tight. The tension thickened, the shadows recoiling at the standoff. They seemed to pulse, feeding off the energy. Sarah's instincts screamed to run to the light, to grasp onto the only shred of hope. But she felt paralyzed by the weight of doubt and fear. "Mom! Please!" Her son cried out from the safety of his blanket fortress. Overwhelmed by the sight of her children huddled together, Sarah felt a warmth surge through her, igniting courage. "We have to fight back," she shouted, voice brightening in defiance. Larson sneered, clenching his fists as the shadows began to swirl around him, almost beckoning him with promises of power. "You don't know what you're meddling with, Sarah. Just let it take you." "No!" she roared back. It struck her suddenly, was he not just a man, but one of them? An agent of this dark army? A chill swept through her as she realized their true intent. They wanted her spirit, her light. As the darkness began to close in again, Sarah felt something shift. The air thickened around her as if the weight of the world had fallen upon her shoulders. The shadows moved with purpose now, swirling aggressively as they converged like wolves circling prey. "Barnes!" she cried, frantic. "The light, it might help us. Hold on!" he yelled, pulling her towards the blinding glow just beyond the threshold. But before they could reach it, the shadows lunged, engulfing Barnes. The moment he touched the darkness, it consumed him, a dark tidal wave swallowing the space whole. "No!" Sarah screamed, instinctively moving to grab her children. Their wide startled eyes met hers, but the shadows were pulling at their feet now, tendrils of night creeping ever closer. "In here!" She yanked them toward the light, propelled by desperation. They stumbled, disoriented by the rapid shift from darkness to brightness. But the darkness raged, clawing at Sarah's mind, the whispers morphing into anguished screeches. "Join us, Sarah, join us." Her fingers fumbled with the knife as she drew it closer to her chest. Time slowed. Each second felt like an eternity as the mesmerizing light flickered ominously, balancing on the edge of abyss and salvation. "Mom!" Her daughter wailed just as the darkness lunged again, an insatiable roar rushing forward. As the shadows reached with 1,000 claw-like fingers, Sarah's world shattered. "Mom, help!" Then, absolute silence. The light flickered out, and with it, Sarah's last hope. Where should she go now? Had a greater darkness claimed them all? A single flicker illuminated the crumbling room. A new presence? Was there anyone left to fight? The sound of heavy breathing filled the space. Shadows receded, but something darker was waiting. What would be revealed when the light returned? A soft rustling broke the silence, the kind of sound that made your spine tingle. The shadows might be receded, but Sarah felt a pulsing dread, like a heartbeat echoing in the void. She blinked, trying to adjust her eyes, searching through the dark for her children. "Liam, Lily," she whispered, her voice trembling. Fear laced her words, every syllable weighed down with dread. They had to be there. They had to be safe. A whimper echoed from the other side of the room. Relief coursed through her veins, pushing her forward. "I'm here. I'm right here." In the dimness, shapes took form. Familiar shapes. She reached for them, her hands trembling. "It's okay, it's okay. We need to stick together." Liam and Lily were huddled close, their little bodies shaking. "Mom, I was so scared," Liam said, his eyes impossibly wide. "Me too, Mommy," Lily added, tears streaking her dirty cheeks. Shoo, she comforted, wrapping her arms around them. Her heart raced, the soothing warmth of her children anchoring her fear. But that brief comfort shattered as she remembered the darkness that had swallowed Barnes whole, leaving only a suffocating silence in its wake. Suddenly, an icy breeze swept through the room. It felt alive, winding between them like a serpent. Sarah's breath hitched. "Stay close," she said, her voice firmer this time. The shadows seemed to ripple, creeping up the walls. Whispers returned, softer now but no less insidious. "You knew this would happen, you always knew." "Shut up," she cried, gripping her knife tighter. The once reassuring metal now felt like a burden. A shadow danced at the periphery of her vision. Sarah whipped around, holding her breath, but nothing was there except darkness that thickened around them, vibrating with malicious intent. Then she heard its footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, echoing ominously in the stillness. It wasn't the footsteps of a friend. Not Barnes. No, this was something else. Something worse. "Who's there?" she shouted into the void, her voice cracking. The footsteps paused, and then, a low, guttural chuckle slithered through the air. "You thought you could save them, Sarah? You were always meant to serve." Each word was like ice carving through her skin. She felt every pulse of her fear, every doubt winding like a noose. Larson. The thought twisted within her, the realization that he was part of something far greater, far darker than she'd ever imagined. Panic surged in her, radiating warm desperation. "Get away from us!" she yelled, pushing her children behind her like a barrier. The chuckle deepened, resonating from all around. "Join us, Sarah. Embrace what you truly are. They thrive with your light, but they can't without you." "No. I am not like you," she shot back, but her conviction felt hollow. For a moment, she hesitated, uncertainty clawing at her brain. What was she really facing? And deeper still drowned a void. What if they were right? Just then, the flickering light returned, brighter this time. It illuminated the room, chasing away the shadows momentarily, revealing the horror that lingered just beyond the light's reach. And then, in that sharp illumination, she saw him. A figure loomed near the shattered wall, his presence dark and foreboding, eyes gleaming like coals ready to ignite. "Welcome back, Sarah," Larson hissed, a mocking glee dancing on his lips. The echo of hope collided with pure terror. "You're too late," he jeered, stepping closer, the shadows congealing around him again, hungry and eager. "Once you fall into the darkness, there's no way back. Run!" She screamed at her children, adrenaline surging through her veins. But as they turned, the shadows snaked toward them, blocking their escape, hungry to feast on their innocence. "Do you feel that?" Larson taunted, his voice a poisonous whisper. "The walls closing in? They are with me now." As they backed against the walls of their dim prison, Sarah realized they'd have to confront this dark man, this embodiment of dread. But how? The light flickered again, struggling against the darkness as despair washed over her. What could she do? Could they stop him before the last light vanished completely? An intense pressure built in the air, heavy with unspoken horrors. The walls seemed to lean in, suffocating, waiting for their next move. With every heartbeat, the moment grew ripe with dreadful possibility. But somewhere in the depths, a glimmer of hope fought to remain. Would it be enough to pull them from the brink? Shadows writhed closer still. Could she summon her last reserves of strength to fight back? Or was darkness destined to claim them all? As Larson's grin widened, the nightmare was just beginning. The shadows rushed in like a wave, eager to engulf them. Sarah felt the chill prick at her skin, an electric dread that clawed at her resolve. She could feel the weight of Larson's gaze, eyes glimmering in the ghostly light, full of malevolence and glee. "Get ready, Sarah," he said, a sickening sweetness to his words. "You're about to find out what true darkness tastes like." "Mom?" Liam's whisper broke through the noise, fear lacing his voice. "Stay close," she snapped, her heart racing. The room felt smaller, the walls creeping in as if alive. She could see them shifting, vibrating with hostility. "Mommy, I can't breathe," Lily whimpered, clutching her little brother. "Just hold on to me," Sarah urged, but doubt slithered through her mind. What if holding on wasn't enough? Panic built, twisting her stomach into knots, then the light flickered again, revealing Larson's true form for an instant. His face warped, the shadows wrapping around him like a cloak of dark magic. Blood-red lines traced the edges of his figure, marking him as something not entirely human. A shiver raced down her spine. "Are you ready to see?" he hissed, laughter echoing off the walls. "You'll understand soon enough why the darkness has come for you." Suddenly, all the voices of the shadows blended into one shrill cry, filling the room. The air crackled, vibrating with torment. They were alive, entities seeking salvation through their despair. "Mommy." Liam pressed closer, his body trembling against her. "Sarah, you're running out of time." Larson's taunt shrank her world, the walls now a suffocating prison made of fear. With barely a moment to lose, she thrust the knife into the air, a bloody symbol of defiance. "No. I refuse to be a part of this." Amidst her desperation, a flicker of strength surged through her. Behind her adrenaline-fueled courage was the fight to protect her children. They were worth any risk, any horror. But would she find a way to shield them from Larson's darkness? "Foolish woman," Larson spat, his voice laden with disdain. "You can't fight what you don't understand." He lunged forward, shadows swirling around him in a chaotic tempest. Sarah could feel a pressure mounting, like the world was about to split apart. The air grew thick, almost suffocating, each breath a struggle as if the shadows grasped for her throat. "Mom!" Liam screamed, but even in their despair, a cry for hope laced through the fear. In that moment, Sarah's resolve crystallized. She could either quail beneath Larson's looming shadow or become a force against him. There was no room for doubt. She had to fight, not just for herself but for her children. Lily's tears glistened as they mirrored the dim light, and Sarah caught a glimpse of determination. The flickering light bounced off her children, igniting a fierce warmth in her heart. They could still escape. With one last breath, Sarah shouted, "This ends now." She braced herself, knife poised, determination blazing in her chest. But just as she surged forward, the shadows swelled, twisting and turning like a living creature, enveloping her in darkness. As they tightened around Sarah and her children, the last remnants of light faded, swallowed whole. With a mighty crash, the world caved in, enveloping them in tenebrous silence. The laughter of Larson faded into a haunting echo, leaving only a dreadful void where hope once lived. Had she made the right choice? Was this truly the end, or did she just ignite a curse upon them? And deep within the shadows, a whisper teased the edge of her consciousness: "You cannot outrun what you are destined to become." The darkness wrapped tightly around Sarah, squeezing the air from her lungs. Panic surged like electricity through her veins. She felt her heart thundering, a relentless drum echoing against the stillness. Shadows pressed against her, heavy and cold, as if trying to smother her screams. "Liam, Lily, can you hear me?" she gasped, desperate. But the only response was silence, the kind that was both deafening and suffocating. She turned wildly, searching for her children. "Mom!" Liam's voice broke through the thick darkness, a faint beacon. "Where are you?" She reached out blindly, her fingers stretching into nothingness. The shadows felt alive, writhing around her, whispering her fears back to her in sickening tones. She imagined clawing hands reaching for her children, hunger in every touch. "Over here!" Liam cried again, the sound pulling her toward it. Sarah stumbled forward, arms outstretched, a mixture of dread and determination propelling her. She felt something soft and warm. It was Liam, his little body trembling against her. "I thought I lost you." she gasped, pulling him close. Lily's smaller form was nearby, clutching a corner of Sarah's jacket. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily sobbed, her voice barely a whisper against the oppressive weight of the shadows. "I know, baby. Just hold my hand," Sarah soothed, her own voice breaking. She gripped them tightly, fortifying her bravery as she steadied her breathing. "Sarah." Larson's voice cut through the darkness again, sharper than glass. "You think you can protect them? You are mistaken. They belong to the shadows now." A new wave of fear crashed over her. The very thought of her children being taken away filled her with hopelessness. "I'll never let that happen," she shouted, holding the knife aloft again, hoping the glint of metal would chase the shadows away. But the shadows ripped through her courage, an unending tide that surged and threatened. They converged around her like a storm. She felt them creeping up her legs, slick and clammy, seeping into her very soul. Liam's breath hitched beside her, and Sarah could almost feel the weight of despair press down on him. "What do we do?" he whimpered, his childish bravado crumbling like dust. "We keep fighting," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We will find a way." The knife felt warm in her grip, a fleeting comfort. Was it enough to pierce this mantle of darkness? As her eyes adjusted to the dim, she searched for a way out. The shadows shifted, flickering like flames, and she caught glimpses of other tormented faces reflected in them. Souls trapped in a nightmare, yearning for escape. Were they lost, or could they be freed too? "Mom! Look!" Liam pointed. A glimmer emerged in the distance, a pulse of light that pushed through the thick darkness. Before Sarah could grasp the magnitude of it, a shriek erupted around them, echoing with rage and despair. "Do not follow it." Larson's voice, more than a command, felt like a warning, but something deep within cried out for the light. "We have to go," Sarah urged, adrenaline surging. Hand in hand, they stumbled toward the light, desperation fueling each hastily made step. But the shadows howled in protest, clawing at their legs, determined to drag them back. "Fight!" Sarah urged, throwing her weight against the darkness. Her heart raced painfully in her chest. Just a few more steps. Then, the ground beneath their feet trembled, a rumble of chaos echoing in the void. The shadows fought back, coiling tighter like serpents, pulling them backward. "No! Not now!" she screamed. The pulse of light flickered ominously, illuminating the faces of the trapped souls who surrounded them. In their gaze was a mix of hope and despair. Were they waiting for help, or were they bound by a curse far worse than mere darkness? "Mom!" Liam cried out again, confusion written all over his face, the horror of their predicament stealing the color from his cheeks. Before Sarah could respond, a new, chilling voice licked at the edges of her mind, softer, menacing. "You think light will save you? Light reveals, but it also blinds." She felt the pull of the shadows and the burn of the light. "What do we choose?" Sarah's insides twisted. Terror gripped her heart as she tried to understand what lurked beyond the light. What if they broke free from Larson, only to stumble into another horror? The choice loomed large. In that fleeting moment, she realized something horrific. What if the real danger lies not in the shadows but in the light? They rushed toward the light, a distant, pulsating beacon against the overwhelming darkness. But the shadows writhed, angry serpents determined to drag them back into the abyss. Sarah felt the cold tendrils grip her ankles, sticky and clammy like wet leaves. "Mom! It's pulling me!" Liam cried, his small voice pierced by fear. "Hold on!" Sarah shouted, her nails digging into their hands, trying to form an unbreakable bond. "We can make it." Each step felt like running through molasses, the shadows twisting, clawing, grasping at her, determined to snatch her children away. She was filled with a primal instinct, a mother's heart fighting for her kids. "Sarah!" Larson's voice echoed around them, now frantic and mocking. This is futile. You cannot outrun the inevitable. But as the light flickered with each ragged breath, they pressed on, the soft glow warmer than the darkness. Look! Lily pointed, her eyes wide. Before them, the light began to take shape, morphing into a doorway framed with a glimmering silver sheen. Mom, we can go through. We can get out. Her excitement sang like a chime in the night. But something in Sarah froze her. The cool brightness drew her in, inviting and dangerous. Would stepping through bring them safety or deeper horrors? Mommy, I'm cold, Lily whimpered, shivering. I know, baby, I know. A sharp gasp escaped Sarah as a shadow lunged. She whipped around, the knife clutched tight, its blade catching the glow of the light momentarily. Was it a weapon or merely a reflection of her own fear? It trembled in her grip. Don't! Larson shrieked, his voice twisting in the air with malice. It won't help. You don't understand. Once you cross, your souls will be extinguished. The light is just a trap. His words split through the tension. A knife of uncertainty pierced her mother's resolve. What if he's right? She thought in a fleeting moment of chaos. The shadows pulsed tighter, a dark, hungry mass closing in around them. Panic squeezed at her throat, suffocating her thoughts. Mom! We have to do something. Liam yelled, pulling against the shadows, struggling to remain tethered to her. With no time left, Sarah glanced at her children, their terrified faces aflame with bravery and dread. The light beckoned, but Larson's warnings echoed in her mind. Trust your instincts, she murmured, fighting through the doubt. We go into the light. With a surge of determination, she wrenched them forward, adrenaline spurring her feet as lightning struck through her veins. They leapt for the doorway, the shadows screaming in fury, but she felt warmth radiating from the light as they broke into its embrace. Everything around them shifted violently. For a moment, it felt like they were weightless, suspended in the glow. Then the world erupted into blinding brilliance. Colors spun in dizzying patterns, the air filled with electric energy, and for a heartbeat, they felt an exhilarating lift. But that elation shattered as the atmosphere thickened again, twisting into a heavier, darker presence. The light didn't envelop them as they had hoped. Instead, it turned into a swirling current, pulling them apart. No! Sarah screamed, reaching desperately for them, horror slicing through her heart. Liam's small hand slipped from her grasp. Mom! He shouted, panic etched on his face. Find me! Sarah cried, terror lacing her voice as she lunged for his fading shadow. The blinding light pulsed, casting distorted images of their past. Family dinners, school days, moments of joy wrapped in laughter morphed into grotesque echoes. Sounds of her children laughing twisted into deafening shrieks, becoming a cacophony of despair. Mommy! Lily's voice spiraled through, lost in the layers of chaos. Suddenly, the light flickered and dimmed, revealing what lay beyond. Sarah's breath grew shaky. They weren't alone, monstrous forms lurked at the edges, creatures born of shadow and sorrow, eyes glowing with hunger. A sense of realization began to claw at her. What if the shadows were not just here for her children? What if they wanted her too? Stop! She screamed, clutching her heart. Let them go. You can't have them. But the shadows surged forward, ready to claim their next victim. They whispered insidiously, wrapping around her like a fog, pulling at her sanity. In that moment of despair, a familiar voice echoed clearly, "We'll find you, Mom, just hold on." The pull of the darkness clashed against the warmth of the light, two opposing forces ripping at her very essence. Which would win? As tendrils closed in around her face, her heart raced with the pulse of a new realization. Could light keep them safe, or was it merely luring her deeper into the abyss? What if the light was just the beginning of a darker nightmare? The light flickered, once blinding, now trembling under the weight of shadows clawing at the edges, menacing, hungry. You don't understand. Larson's voice thundered through the chaos, shattering her resolve. The light reveals the truth, but it will also consume you. He surged forward, shadows following like a malevolent tide. No! Sarah screamed, her voice a raw edge of fear and determination. She tightened her grip on her knife, its cold steel grounding her in the midst of rising panic. Her children's voices echoed through the chaos, haunting her thoughts, "Mommy, help." And yet, uncertainty hung in the air, something unfurling in the recesses of her mind. Had she brought them into a greater nightmare? Would stepping through the glowing threshold lead to salvation or damnation? Stay close. We're going into the light. She shouted, fighting against the weight of doubt. The pulsating warmth seemed to call to her, an oasis in the suffocating sea of shadows. This was the moment to act. With a fierce tug of maternal instinct, she reached for Liam and Lily, their trembling hands fitting snugly in hers. They were her lifeline and she would not let go. Together, they plunged forward, crossing the threshold. The world twisted, colors flooding around them like a kaleidoscope, and they felt weightlessness washed over them. But that brief elation shattered when the bright light dimmed, and the shadows surged forward like a monstrous tide. "Emoem!" Liam shouted. The brilliance turned violent, ripping them apart in a furious flash. Sarah grasped at nothing, panic tightening in her chest. "Liam! Lily!" She hollered, the sound swallowed by the overwhelming darkness. She stumbled, the promise of safety slipping through her fingers, dragging her into chaos. From the dark, she felt the grip of shadows creeping towards her, pulling at her heart. The whispering grew deafening, coiling tighter, suffocating her thoughts. "Join us, Sarah, become one with the night." "No. I refuse," she cried, fighting against the shadows. "Let my children go." But the darkness closed in, a heavy fog wrapping around her. The air pulsed with anguish, and she felt despair sink its claws deep. She desperately searched for the flickers of light in the swirling void, craving the warmth and safety they promised. Just as hope seemed lost, a flicker caught her eye, the faint outline of her children. They were surrounded, shadows grasping at their small bodies. "Sarah!" Larson's voice twisted in delight. "All will be yours in time, you just have to let them go." "Never." With a ferocious surge, Sarah tore free from the choking grip of the darkness and lunged for her children. "I'm coming." Their eyes met, desperation and courage blending as if creating a beacon illuminating the weariness in their souls. "Together!" Sarah shouted, and in that fleeting moment of unity, she planted her feet firmly. The knife gleamed, focus returning one last act of defiance against Larson, against the shadows born from fear. She thrust the blade into the air, not as a weapon, but as a signal. "This ends here." A sudden shockwave pulsed through the space as her will infused the light. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in horror. And then, as if by magic, the pulsating fury of light flared, pouring warmth and clarity into the dimness. The figures in the shadows twisted and convulsed, wails escaping as if the very essence of the light shredded their connection to the dark. "Run, now!" Sarah urged her children, releasing her grip on the knife as the swirling light engulfed them. They charged together into the radiance, hands clasped tightly, hearts racing as the maelstrom of shadows screeched behind them, retreating. The walls quaked, trembling beneath the intensity of their escape. The light surged brighter than anything Sarah had ever known, filling her with a fierce strength. In that moment, she felt the true power of their love, quelling her doubts and fears. They broke through the threshold of light and tumbled out onto soft ground, bathed in warmth and security. Panting, they scrambled to their feet, and as Sarah turned to look back, she saw the darkness swirl helplessly, trapped on the other side of the divided barrier. Larson's laughter echoed from the void, twisted and vengeful. But within the bones of that laughter was a tinge of fear, the fear of their unity. "Mommy! We did it?" Liam asked, eyes wide, full of disbelief. joy bubbling beneath terror. "We're safe," Lily said, her small arms wrapping around Sarah's waist. The weight of despair lifted, leaving only warmth and love encasing them like a shield. "Together we are stronger," Sarah whispered, resolved. The churning darkness behind them held no power over the love they had forged together. As they stood, huddled close and bathed in the glow of hope, Sarah felt a surge of new determination ignite within her, a warm blaze in her heart. They had faced the horrors together and emerged, not unscathed but victorious. The darkness could whisper its temptations, but they would move forward, hand in hand, leaving it behind. "Let us go home," Sarah said, newfound strength buoying her spirit as she took her children's hands, walking away from the night that sought to devour them. They would take the lessons of darkness and light, weaving them into the fabric of their lives, forever stronger, forever together. Now, more than ever, Sarah knew they would never run from the shadows again. If you've made it through this wild ride with me, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that unfold. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think will happen next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Thank you for your support.